What is up, bros? Me, Josh. In today's video is all about the Tier 10 IJN Destroyer, the Haragumo. Now, this ship is still work in progress, and these stats could change before it officially goes live, but we did get a chance to preview the ship, and here are some of its stats. Now, the IJN line a long time ago on the Destroyer line got a split, and one side was focused more towards torpedoes, and one side was focused more towards quote-unquote gunships. Now, of course, the Haragumo, and these aren't really known as proving gunships, but a new playstyle of IJN Destroyers came with the Akazuki, the 100mm guns, fast firing, and this whole kind of getting away from torp, focusing mainly on torps, but adding this kind of middle hybrid class of really good guns, high rate of fire, and not quite so torpedo focused. And this is the continuation on it with, of course, the Kitakaze at tier 9, the Haragumo at tier 10. So it's basically a giant Akazuki. You're going to hear me say that in this video. One of the ships I'd also like to compare this to is the Khabarovsk, because it kind of has a similar playstyle to the Kaba a little bit. Let's dive into some quick stats and we'll jump into some gameplay. A monstrous hit pool, health pool of 25,600. Now, this is actually without survivability expert. I wanted to try this little build to see how it would be with a more offensive build. You can get this thing to almost 30,000 life, so a monstrous health pool, the biggest, I think, of all destroyers, although it doesn't have a heal like the Khabarovsk does, so the Khabarovsk technically does have more. 5 sets of 2, so 10 shells going out at one time, 100mm. So again, if you look at my captain really fast, you're going to need inertia fuse. You're going to need that 100mm. Basically, it's going to shatter on almost everything. But if you do add inertia fuse, it's going to give that impact, and you are going to have a much more more damage per salvo, basically, of what the shells can do. We're still going to get lots of shatters with this ship, a ton of them, but luckily you fire every 2.6 seconds due to the module, and you're flinging them out like you could ripple fire this all day long. An insane main battery firing range of 15.1 kilometers, but a trajectory of 1,000 meters per second. So it's not quite like USN, but at 15 kilometers, it's pretty. I want to try this ship without AFT, but I still feel like you just might as well run AFT anyways. Because I guess you can still technically hit them at 15K, but your effective range is probably going to be with about that 12 kilometers in. But really, the ship is a god tier against destroyers. 1 torpedo launcher, so kind of following the Akazuki style of 1 set of torpedoes, but you're mainly going to be focusing on guns. And these are 12-kilometer range, so outside of the normal 10 or 20, you know, as you see kind of at this normal tier. Very high AA range, continuing on with the Akazuki style. High AA and being able to knock down a bunch of planes. Of course, no AA consumable. But this is kind of some of the downsides right here. This is the maneuverability of this ship, and this is one of the biggest weaknesses, is 35.7 knots. This is without a flag. This is just what the ship is like. Now, it's an IJN destroyer, so whenever you turn, you also bleed speed very, very quickly. So whenever you're trying to shake away from a ship, you're going to drop down to sub 30 knots very, very quickly. One of the biggest downsides of this ship. Also, the turning circle radius, 830 meters. Now, this is a massive ship. It's very, very, very big. But let's just compare it to a tier 10 cruiser called the Zhao, and if I can get to the Zhao, 830 for the destroyer, 840 for the Zhao. So you almost have the same turning radius as the tier 10 cruiser for the line. Just comparing it even to the Mogami with 750. The Mogami is more agile than this destroyer. Again, one of the biggest problems with this ship is its lack of maneuverability, and it's relatively slow comparing it to, let's say, even the Shimakaze. If I can scroll over to the Shimakaze is faster than this ship, although it is smaller, but it's one of the biggest downsides. And concealment at 6.2. You're one of the higher detection ships. Of course, you are bigger. Of course, you should have a higher detection, but you're going to basically get outspotted by everything. But the good thing is you have 10 shells firing with inertia fuse, and you're going to rip them up. Let's dive into some gameplay, and I'll show you kind of the strengths and weaknesses of the ship and what I think they will end up changing before the ship goes live. So here we are in game with the Haragumo, and the first thing you can see is this ship is absolutely massive. You're almost like, am I playing a small cruiser? You know, you see something like the Huanghe, which is a tier 6 cruiser. It kind of almost looks similar, except this is a bit skinnier and has the resemblance of a Shimakaze somewhere. But again, the ships that this is going to be compared to the most and is basically a tier 10 Akazuki. That's what this is. It's following that playstyle, so if you enjoy that playstyle, you will kind of like this ship. I enjoy that playstyle. I play more of the Haragumo kamikaze because it's more of a better hybrid with it having the second set of torpedoes as well as being stealthier. But this ship does have some downfalls. Has some great points, and that is that it is god tier against destroyers. With having a Giran on our team, me and an Akazuki, we're going against a Shimakaze, a Yu Yang, and a Kid. Downside is those things all outspot you. Now they should. They're not as big as you. You're a massive destroyer. But one thing I have found is that you almost need to set some traps and then just absolutely obliterate destroyers. Although this thing is going to just destroy things with its torpedoes or with its guns, just because of the pure rate of fire. And of course, remember we have inertia fuse and we have some pretty actually good AA as well. But the thing is, what is good because you have so many guns requires you being a big ship. Downside about that ship is having CVs going in at you, although you have decent AA, but you can also take a bunch of shells from other ships, as in the Atago, and this game kind of here, I tried to treat it a bit more like a gunboat. Just wanted to see how it does. Treat it a bit more, let's say, like a Khabarovsk. If you've ever played the Khabarovsk, you know, you can kind of just run the gun a little bit. I tried to play it a little bit more here, and it seemed to be semi-effective, but you end up just, you know, you're such a big target, and what you really are gonna have to do is almost play like a kind of like a USN cruiser almost, where you're gonna want to use some cover and do what you can, and of course be careful when you're going against other ships and against planes, because you know you're a massive target. That's one of the downsides of the Akazuki, is if you do get dropped on and you don't knock on any planes, you are a relatively big target. So what am I trying to do right here? I'm going to try to go around. We keep getting spotted by planes. That's because we have a relatively high firing range, so you're going to get spotted from basically the moon if you're firing. Again, when you do fire, you do get spotted from your firing range with the change. So if you're spotted and something's in your range, I'm spotted at 15.1 kilometers. And with being a relatively big destroyer that's not incredibly fast, there is a bit of a problem there. With the Khabarovs, you tend to be extremely fast, so it's hard to hit something going 40 plus knots, because you know, you move a little bit, you're going to be in a completely different area than originally thought. But with this destroyer, you tend to be relatively slow. And I try to get a little sneaky here, and this is one of the downsides too, is it's really, really tough. And I play this wrong. 100% I play this wrong, but you do get punished because of how big you are compared to these guys. Now the Iowa, no big deal, right? 6.2, 6.3 kilometers. That's no thing. Downside is when a Cleveland pops up and he's going to radar you, and this is the downside right here, is we juke that shot, which is no big deal. And of course, going against anything with radar, with how much radar there is, it's really tough to kind of make this ship shine. And one of the things I said earlier was this is going to be a lot like a Khabarovsk, with you kind of have this false hope of you want to play normal destroyer, but you get out spotted by everything, and then if you overextend, you're just going to get killed because you don't have a very high detectability, and if you do get spotted, you're just so massive, right? So of course we're in radar range. We messed this up again. I didn't play this right, but we get beat up here. We're a massive target. So pretty bad start. Hey, adrenaline rush boost. We're gonna see what this thing can do when it's only at a third health. Downside is we don't really have any heals, so we got to rotate back and then hopefully start working. Luckily, we got a torp on that Iowa, pushed him away, and we have a Monty with it in our division, so hopefully he can obliterate that guy off the planet. One thing is too, I can't unload on this guy because that Iowa was going to be in my range. Now, if I didn't have AFT, I'd probably be good to shoot right now, but I can't risk that with only having less sub 10k already in the first little bit. We did see the Yu Yang, and one thing I kind of did try to do more and more, and this smoke I actually gave this Cleveland like a perfect smoke this game. One thing I did start doing with this ship when I was playing it is backing in a lot to some caps. And what I mean by that is you kind of back in and then wait a little bit. So here you can see the kind of damage you can do on a broadside Cleveland. Cleveland is known as being super armored. So this is 10 100mm shells with a 2.8 second reload. So we're going to see what we can do. We haven't been able to do really that much. I don't even know if you can see it on the replay, if it shows how many. But I mean, just going against the Cleveland, 8 shattered shells. Maybe we've been hitting kind of low armor belt. 8 shattered shells, 1 fire. So again, being able to shoot over, kind of a bummer we don't have that angle. And again, we're still getting picked on just because we're such a massive you're a big ship, right? You're a big ship with bad maneuverability, and you're not fast. So those things don't quite go together. That's where the Cabba kind of shines. If I was a Cabba, I'd be out on the 9 line or on the 1 line, just absolutely punishing these guys. That Cleveland would be dead already. With this ship, you really can't, because you just don't have that that ability. But let's watch here, and whenever I do kind of start to unload, because there are a couple times this time, I want you guys to watch this. We're watching for full pens, and we're watching for shatters. So I'm hitting the Cleveland in the right spot. This is with inertia fuse, so if I didn't have inertia fuse, imagine how many shatters there'd be. Now there's a situation later in the game when I'm going against a battleship, so much like a more armored ship, you're going to see the difference there. But if you can set up into a position where there is something like that, not very armored, that's where this thing is going to shine. It's going to shine against destroyers. It's going to shine against lightly armored ships, and it's really, really going to shine if things are kind of just sitting there, because you will burn them down. Now your fire chances isn't extremely high, but you have such a high rate of fire, you can make up for it. Again, I could be up, I would be around a 10k if I had survivability expert, but I don't. Also, here's the situation right here. I'm at 5800. This Yu Yang is at 18k. So let's see what he ends up and what I end up. I mean, 2.8 seconds. We're gonna chunk him down, and we're gonna trade a little bit of life. We're probably at about what? Let's see what the reload is. About 2.4 or so. I have to be a little careful. But we lost about 800, and we're going to see what happens when this Yu Yang pops back up. I think he survives most of the game. But see, this is where the ship is going to absolutely just be amazing, right? We're at 30 pens, 0 shatters. This is where this ship will shine. It is one of the best, if not the best, DD hunters when something is spotted, because your alpha damage, now with like the Cabba is great against destroyers as well, but the Cabba just gets out detected by so much. Now that Yu Yang out detects me by a couple tenths of a kilometer, right? So if you are spotting something, oh my god, is that thing going to get absolutely wrecked when it comes to destroyers. Although there are situations like my best game, like this isn't even that good of a damage game, but my best game in this ship was actually a loss, and the first 2 ships I did was 30,000 damage to 2 destroyers. I killed the 2 enemy DDs as first blood and as the second kill, and it's still, the ship really lacks, in my opinion. I mean, see, he was almost full life and he's down to 5k. That's where this thing is just amazing. And so you're gonna have 3 salvos in the air at all times. So destroyers, great. Light cruisers, great. But we're gonna see against those big ships, that's where this thing is gonna be relatively weak, and you have to pick your fights, because you will get picked on, especially against battleships. That big battleship AP is still the same. You know, they're talking about doing that rework to it, but you know, right now how battleship AP is how it is still in the game. So you have to be very, very careful. But you know, what I was talking about going against other ships is this ship just kind of lacks carry potential. It really does. And how I've been explaining this is it's very good at what it does, which is if it finds destroyers, you're going to kill those destroyers, unless the destroyer, of course, hits you with torps because you're the size of a freaking cruiser. But you're great against DDs, great against light cruisers, but you really tend to be weak against what kind of seems like everything else. It's pretty lackluster. You're going to see me against the battleship in a little bit, and you even watch me. I think I unload on this Iowa once my smoke comes back up. But you'll see what this thing kind of does. It does set a pretty high rate of fire, of course, so you're going to be lighting lots of fires. But again, I mean, this is when you just would like, okay, I'd rather just play a Cabba. And that's one thing I compared it to earlier as well, is it kind of does what a Cabba does, but not as well. But it does other things that the Cabba does better. So, and then maybe that's okay. Maybe that's okay, and maybe that's part of, you know, it makes this relatively unique, right? Makes this ship unique. It makes the Akazuki unique. I feel like the Akazuki is kind of better at its tier compared to this thing currently. And this to me just felt like sometimes there's just so much I couldn't do. Again, we're going to watch the shatters. We're going to watch the full pens. This is with the inertia fuse, so imagine if you didn't have it. Again, this is a ship that's going to take at least a 14-point captain, although if you have it at 10, tier 10, you're going to have a 14-point captain as well. And now we are hitting a bit of the higher armor belt, but again, we're basically doubling our brakes compared to that. But of course, I mean, you're having at this point 4 salvos in the air. So if you want to be an annoying ripple firing DD, this is going to be the DD for you. You're going to absolutely love it. And but you know, just stacking up 25 full pens to 30 full pens to 50, you know, this is where it's kind of just like pure quantity over quality. If this was a Kavaros, this guy would be dead, right? I mean, you should have the lower trajectory, the AP, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I kind of did want to focus a little bit more on HE this game. The AP does still work if you're hitting the top tier, and this, like the top part of it, the mass and everything like that. But this, it's just pure just fire, constant fire. And you know, that in its own way is some fun. But there's only a couple ships left, so we're gonna kind of see me just do a bit more of open water. And as the guy said, took you long enough. We have 232 hits, 2 torpedo hits, 2 floods, 3 fires, and a kill. But you're gonna see me, what seems like it shouldn't be that long. We're gonna open up on this North Carolina here in a little bit. You know, I was like 16K, no big deal. Let's see what we do. And this was one that was like, wow. All right, so what's going on with this ship right now? And I thought this was a pretty good ship because it shows how good you are against destroyers, right? It showed how good we were against Cleveland's. But this is one I want you guys to watch, the breaks compared to the full pens. And we're pretty even right now. You know, we're at 17 full pens, 13 shatters. But as he starts to turn a little bit more, you're gonna start seeing these shatters, you know, start to catch up a little bit and start to take over a little bit. And it's just, I feel like this ship has potential. This is a playstyle that has potential, right? I think a lot of people enjoy this playstyle a lot, but I really feel like I don't feel like this ship is quite ready as it is. What do I think it's going to happen in the ship? I feel like the maneuverability. So its major weaknesses are maneuverability and maneuverability, speed, and I feel like maybe fire chance. So that's not bad right there. I feel like maybe fire chance. Oh, I think it's against the aircraft carrier that we had trouble. That wasn't really that bad. So I feel like they're going to buff the maneuverability on this. I feel like they might buff the fire chance a little bit. You know, we had 4 fires on over 300 hits. That's not very good. And most of it was superstructure hits. And I think one of the first one was like a first salvo by that Cleveland that were all shatters. But I feel like this is an attractive playstyle for a lot of people. I feel like this ship overall was pretty underwhelming as it was. If it was a bit more agile, I feel like you could get a bit more aggressive. But since you can't get those turns off and you can't really, you know, get going as much as you really want to, I feel like that kind of held me off from a lot of fights and not being able to, you know, really get a bit more aggressive. But again, the thing I want to stress is this thing is going to be an absolute nightmare. It's going to be that monster in the dark. It's going to be that monster under the bed. If you know a Haragumo is out there and you're playing a DD, you better not get caught by that Haragumo, and that guy better not have a radar friend, because if you do, you're just going to get absolutely smoked. That rate of fire is sick. The alpha damage is sick, especially when you need inertia fuse. So if you just prepare a captain for that if you want to. Assuming you have the Akazuki already, you're going to have a good chance. But I feel like this thing needs a couple tweaks. You know, I think it's extremely good at what this ship does, but I feel like there are some massive weaknesses that just make it completely underwhelming. You know, what it does is it's a great support destroyer. It feels like the Khabarovsk, but I feel like for what this ship does well and how much radar there is out there right now, I feel like I would just rather have a Khabarovsk. I feel like I would have done 150,000 damage this game if I was in the Khabarovsk compared to the 80,000 that I kind of struggled to get this game. But again, strengths against destroyers, strengths against light cruisers, you're going to have a tough time against kind of the bigger ships, which there are a lot of. the nerf, the Haragumo nightmare is going against the CV. We're going to look at how many shatters. Of course, armored deck, nothing you can really do against this, but that's going to be the loft right there. As you saw me talk about earlier, the firing range of over 15 kilometers, 15.1. If you're not going to get too much, basically within 12 is going to be your range. So anything outside of that is going to be kind of 4 full pens, 49 shatters. that armored deck is going to be the counter to this ship. But anyways, I feel like this game has a ton of potential, or I feel like this ship has a ton of potential. I feel like that playstyle is a pretty fun playstyle for a lot of people. I think there's a lot. I think that's, people love the Akizuki, and I feel like it's fun. But I feel like this ship is a good kind of rough draft for what this ship could be. I just don't think it's quite ready yet. So again, I think they'll probably change the maneuverability. I think they'll maybe change the fire chance a little bit, maybe just a couple percent, nothing crazy. Because with that fire chance, it's a lot of RNG, right? 300 plus hits for 4 fires. I think I had 5 fires at the end or whatever it was. If they buff it too much, then you're just going to be spitting out 20 fires. So they can't do it too much. A small little boost there, probably a small maneuverability buff, and then it might honestly feel like you're playing a different ship, and you can be a bit more aggressive and kind of the stealthy, stealthy gunboat, stealthy Kaba almost. But again, we're seeing this kind of push for stealthier ships from Wargaming recently, and this is just continuing on. So we'll see how it goes. But anyways, guys, this ship is still work in progress. So things are subject to change. Kind of what I told you was what I think they'll end up changing. No, that's just totally my guess. But anyways, want to do a quick little video. It's not really that quick. It took a bit longer than I wanted to, but a video over the Haragumo, the tier 10 IJN destroyers on the gunboat line, and hope this video gives you a cool little insight to the preview of this, and I hope you guys all have an awesome day. That's it for me, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.